All right, everybody. So before we get started on the course, I want to give you an introduction to Excel. If you're familiar with Microsoft Excel, you understand the different cells, how to input, maybe how to do formulas, and most important, you're familiar with this home ribbon, the different formatting, etc. You can probably go ahead and skip this video, and then anything beyond what we cover in this video, if we do something during the course, I'll actually call it out and explain it at that point. So this is really geared towards people who, maybe, have opened an Excel workbook before, but really don't understand, all sort of the functionality in here. So if you are still with me, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Microsoft Excel. So first of all, Excel is a spreadsheet program. It's by Microsoft, operates very much similar to Google Sheets. So if you use Google Sheets, most of this will apply as well. You might just have to go find things in different locations. So each of these is considered a cell, and this is basically where we're going to be entering data, whether it's numbers, letters, or formulas. Each cell has a cross-reference, so you'll notice all the columns have a letter and all the rows have a number. So any given cell has a cross-reference. For example, this one is I-10. And you can tell that because it's slightly shaded and slightly shaded, or you can also just look right here and see what is. So as we click anywhere, you'll see that changes. Microsoft Excel, so these are considered workbooks, and they very much are like a book in that there's different sheets. So I have my default set up to when I create a new workbook, it just opens up with one sheet. Yours might be different. It might have had multiple sheets already. Regardless of whether it did or not, you can add sheets by clicking the plus sign. So, if we're using multiple sheets in our course, we will need a few different sheets. So anything we do on one sheet won't impact the other. So these really are like pages in a book. So this is like page 1, page 2, page 3, etc. So most of the functionality we're going to be using, again, is on this Home tab. Excel is a very powerful tool. You can do quite a bit with it. But for the purpose of this course, we really don't need to get too involved. I just want to show you how to do basic sort of data entry and some formatting and moving things around, etc. So the way we're going to start this is I'm just going to create a short little sort of table, if you will. Let's assume it's a table of test scores. So I'm going to write out some names. So Chris, Bob, I keep typing it wrong. Bob, Julie, and Mark. And then maybe we have test 1, test 2, and test 3. Now the way I'm moving around is on my keyboard. I'm just using the arrow keys, and simple as that. Whenever you're in a cell, just start typing and it'll enter. You'll see that whatever we type here is also up here. This is called the formula bar. So later on, when we actually create formulas, what you'll see here is you'll just see the result of the formula. You'll be able to actually see the formula itself up here. So for example, if we typed, equals 4 plus 7, it would show 11 in here, but it would actually show the plus 4 plus 7 up here. All right, so for our test scores, let's go ahead and put in some just dummy data. I'm just trying to populate some information just so we have something to work with. That's a little bit unrealistic. 6, 7. Okay. So we have a nice little table here. So this would be one good use of Excel. Maybe you're a teacher and you want to keep track of test scores. Well, trying to then apply what we're doing right now to what we're going to be doing in the course, we typically want to format this so it just presents a bit better. It's a little bit easier to look at. It's a little bit easier to understand. So first things I want to do is kind of take care of this header row. So we're going to go across and use all the things here, but not necessarily in order, because some things it makes sense to do later on. So first things first, to highlight, so anything we do, so if we're highlighting a cell and then we go and do something up here, like we apply a bold or color, it'll only do it to the cell that's highlighted. Now, we can highlight multiple cells, and the way we do that is if you click on the first cell and then hold down your left click and now move your mouse, you can highlight, and I'm just scrolling around. I still have my left click pressed down so it can scroll around, so I'm just going to scroll to here and let go. And then those are all highlights. Now anything we do up here will apply to all of these cells. Conversely, another way to do it is on your keyboard. If you hold down the shift key and then move your arrows around, that will also highlight. So just hold shift, and when you're done, you just let go. So let's scroll up here. I'm going to hold down shift, and there we go. Okay, guys, so I like to typically bold my headers, so let's go ahead and apply some bold. So this very first part here, I should say second part, because we'll get to this, is you can do bolding, and basically it's the font itself. So we could change the font style, And anytime you see a drop down box, like a little arrow, that means you can drop it down. You have multiple choices. Typically, I don't change the fonts. The one thing we might do is change the font size. So maybe we make headers a little bit bigger. So maybe we make that a 12 just to make it stand out. You could use these as well, which is increase font size and decrease font size. And the other thing you'll notice too is as I hover over any of these items, it tells you what it is. Just leave your mouse there for a second. It'll pop up and tell you what that actually does. So here we have, if we want to read, have bold, italics, and underline. One other thing I want to point out is you'll see it says bold and then in brackets it says Control B. So if there's ever a keyboard shortcut, it'll tell you what that is as well. So we can click on the bold and you'll notice it bolded everything. We can click it again to unbold it, or we can hold down our Control. So I'm holding down Control on my keyboard and pressing B. Oops, I gotta get out of that. There we go. So Control B bolds everything. Typically I don't use too much italics or underlining. We'll come back to this in a second. One thing I do like to do though, so just kind of popping over here to alignment, then we're going to move back here. I like to center. So for headers, I want to center my headers. So here you have your alignment. So left, center, and right. So I'm going to hit center. So you notice those are all centered now within their cells. You could indent. So these are indents and remove indents, and these are vertical alignments. We won't get too much into Merge and Center or wrap text most likely, and if we do, I'll just show you during the course. Again, this is meant to be very introductory for you guys, just so we can format what it is that we work on during the course. So the other thing I like to do to make this stand out is a few other things. One, I like to put a line under these. So it's not quite the same as underline. So underline underlines just the text that's in any given cell. Right here we have borders, and borders will put an underline under the entire box. So that's what I want to do. So I'm going to go here, and if I click off it now, you'll see there's that nice solid line. Just a note, again, there's an arrow, so you can drop it down, and there's lots of different borders. You can do the right, the left, the top, boxes, etc. Other thing I like to do is maybe shade it. So we could change our font color. I'm typically not a fan of that. I usually leave everything just as black. If I want something to stand out, I will though shade the cell. So again, drop that box down, and you can highlight, and you see it changing already over here as I scroll around. So it's not permanently changed till I click on it, but it's kind of showing you what it would look like. So maybe we want like a light green. So there we go. We got something nicely formatted. Okay, guys. So next, let's say that this, so let's go over here to copy paste. This is copy paste or cut and paste, etc. in the format painter. So say this was semester 1 and now we want to duplicate this for semester 2. We have the same students, we have the same tests. We don't want to have to recreate this whole thing over here since we have it right here. Well, just use our highlights. So hold down your left mouse and scroll till you cover it. You can go here to copy, and you'll notice copy is Control C, so we can hold down Control, press C, or just click on this. You'll see the jagged line outlines it. That means it's been copied, something's happening with it. So let's just paste it right here. So go to where you want to put that copy, and you can just hit the big paste button. And there we go. Now we have a duplicate of it. Easy as that. Much easier than having to recreate it. Okay, guys. So let's say I wanted to copy this, kind of the format of it, but I didn't really want to copy the data itself, just because we're going to have different students next semester. Obviously the scores will be different, and maybe instead of test ABC, these were dates or something. So I like the format. I like all the time I spent making it green and making it centered, etc. One way we can just copy the format is if you highlight, and technically all we really did was these 4 cells was all we did. This little paintbrush here, it's called the format painter. So you highlight something you have formatted, so this, click the format painter, and then go where you want to paste that format. So there you go. So we have our green, we have our line. If I type something, test 6, it's going to be centered, it's going to be bolded. It's the exact same formatting, so it's a way of copying formatting without copying data. Cut works the exact same. So if we highlight something and go to the scissors, so instead of creating copy now, it will, if we hit paste, it'll cut it and move it to where we went. All right, guys, last few little things. So instead of test scores, say these were actual dollar amounts. Say these were sales amounts. These were salespeople. We were keeping track of how much they sold of each product. So we want to format these to look more like dollars. You notice these are just straight numbers. So the way we can do that is highlight all these again. Then we have our numbers box. So we can format in different ways. So the defaults are, sorry, I should say the shortcut ones are the $sign, the percentage, the comma. There's several other options. You can drop this box down as dates, fractions, etc. And then you can go to more and have even more options. But for our purposes, you know what? We just wanted $signs. So there we go. Perfect. Now, let's say that we didn't really want the cents. We don't need the 2 decimal points. There's a quick way to get rid of that. If you leave it highlighted, don't bother to unhighlight. Right here is the decimal increase and decrease. So if we click decrease once and twice, it gets rid of that decimal point, and it will round off. So those decimals are technically still there. Just they were all zeros because we put in whole numbers. But if there was 0.56 in there, it would have rounded this number up. All right, guys, I believe that is it. Anything else that we cover in the course, like I said, at that point in the course, I'm just going to show you how to do it there. So we'll do things like write formulas. We might do some sorting. We might do a little bit more formatting. But I encourage you at this point, if you're familiar with Excel or you feel comfortable at this point, let's move on. If not, maybe create your own blank worksheet and type some data and just test out. Just try some of these different formats, see what they look like, increase the fonts, cut and paste it around, change things to $signs, make a list of dates. Lots of cool stuff you can do in Excel. So that's it for this introduction. Let's get started on the course.